All right. About a couple months in, we finally get to do effects. It's called After Effects, right? You're kind of promised there'd be effects, and we haven't really done effects. We've done motion. Now we can finally do effects. So let's talk about how to apply effects in After Effects. So I have this video here of, a cat. You can put whatever footage you want. It really does not matter. In fact, actually, I'm just going to throw in the video that I threw in. It doesn't, if you want to download your own video or whatever, go to town. But I'm just going to throw in this footage here. Let's shrink it so you can actually see it. Okay. All right, what I'm going to do to apply an effect is I'm going to go make sure the layer is selected in your timeline, your composition, and go under effects, believe it or not. And then I'm going to apply an effect. So maybe I'm going to do, oh, I don't know, distort. And let's do, I don't know, bend it maybe? I don't even know what that'll do. Oh, okay, it goes kind of this weird. Maybe I don't. I'm gonna undo that. Let's do something a little. Let's start simpler. Let's do a effect like a Gaussian blur. Okay. Now the thing about this is I'm not gonna go through every filter because there's literally hundreds. And to be honest, you can even download and install your own for After Effects that will do certain effects. But they all basically work this way. What's going to happen is when you apply an effect to a video or to an image, it's going to open up something called the effects control. The effects control will show all of the effects being applied to that particular layer. So I can see that a Gaussian blur is being applied here. Each effect has their own properties. In this case, for Gaussian blur, effects that I can do include, the amount of blur. So this is what it looks like without. This is what it looks like with blur. So without, without, with. Okay. I can also change whether I want to do it in one direction or both. Okay. Maybe you can apply more than one effect too. So for instance, I have a Gaussian blur being applied here, but maybe I'm going to do what's called a tint. Tint would give it a different color. This is allowing me to add a color to make it a monochromatic video, which would mean one color, or it doesn't have to be monochromatic, I guess, but usually that's kind of the idea. And this is mapping to the luminance values, which are like the dark areas of my video and the bright areas. So I'm going to set the dark areas to maybe a dark red, and I'm going to set the bright areas to maybe a bright or very light yellow. And then this is the result of my video. Okay. At any point, you can turn off an effect. So for instance, next to each effect here, you might notice that there's this little FX icon. I can take that. By turning that off, that removes it without actually deleting it permanently. So I can affect either one. If you do want to remove an effect, highlight it in your effects control and hit the delete or backspace on your computer, and that would remove it. If you want to turn off all the effects for a footage, you can also do it from your composition here. So under toggles, switches, and modes, you might notice there's something called effects. If I click on this, you might notice that it actually removes all of the effects. So it removed, in this case, the Gaussian blur and also the tint that I applied to it. By the way, if let's say I wanted to get back to my effects control. If you close it by accident, you can go under window and then go under, if I double click on this, Oh, there it is. Sorry, I was in the wrong area. You want to go under highlight the layer and go under effects control, and that should bring back that tab for you at any point. Okay. All right, so you can play around with the different effects. Like I said, I mean, there's all these different effects. I'm not going to go through all of them. They're kind of categorized by what they do. Some of them affect in terms of color correction, meaning you can change colors. Some of them, might create things like create rain or create, some sort of effect. So I'm going to take this footage here. You can apply. This will generate certain things like generate a circle, generate, I don't know what glue gun means exactly, generate a beam, that kind of stuff. Perspective, simulation. So I think for here it will, make rain. So you can see how there's like rain there. That kind of actually works. Or I don't know what Mr. Mercury is, but all right, kind of makes like a globby kind of effect here. Anyway, you can play around with it. But whatever you do, you can also animate these. So we've learned all about keyframing, and keyframing also applies here as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply let's do just a simple blur. I'm going to apply a Gaussian blur, and I'm going to set the blur to 0. Okay. And you might notice that just like when we were playing around with transform properties like, position, scale, transparency, all that good stuff, that we had that stopwatch, well, we still have that here too. So what I can actually do is I'm going to set my time marker to 0. Let's open this bad boy up. I don't really need this here. And I'm going to click on the checkbox or stopwatch here. And then I'm going to go to 1, and then I'm going to set this to maybe like 50. And so what's going to happen is over time, my blurriness is going to go from 0 to 50, or it's going to get blurry over time. So I'm animating that effect. Okay. If I want to see how that actually is keyframed in my layers, I can go under here. Now that we've started applying effects, not only do we get the transition like we did before, sorry, not only do we get the transform, that's the word I was looking for. We also get this effects, and it'll show me all the effects that I'm currently keyframing. Okay. Quick way to sort of see all the things you're doing is I'm going to undo all of this and then just hit U. And that's an easy way to kind of jump to all, the effects that you're playing around with. Now, in this case, it's only showing me the ones that I'm currently keyframing, which happens to be blurriness. I'm not playing around with some of the other properties, but if I did that, I could sort of show all the properties that were possible to be animated. Just like with before, I can jump forward and backwards and maybe change this value. So I'm going to make it even more blurry. And maybe I'm going to make it take a little longer. So instead of 1 second, it's going to take 3 seconds for that effect to occur. All right. All right, last thing. I don't think I try this out. I have a bunch of videos here, as you can see. I have a dog, parrot, person with a kayak, kitty cat. And let's just say for the sake of argument that I wanted to add a tint. Okay. So I'm going to start with the puppy video, which is in the top left corner. And let's go to color correction tint. And let's just say for the sake of argument, I want something like this, where it's like, kind of this yellow, kind of this reddish tint that I got going on here. Now I like that, but I also want to apply it to the other video, right? And actually, if you want, you can actually copy and paste effects. So I could copy this. I'm going to highlight it and then literally just do a command copy and then maybe go to the parrot video and do an edit paste. And actually, you can see it literally copied and pasted the effect with the same settings from one to the other. Now that's great and everything. And I could do that to all four of these. But here's the question, or here's an idea. What happens if later on I go, and maybe I'll do that. I'm just going to paste these to the other video. If I go back to my original puppy video, this is puppy video, and I'm going to switch the colors. Notice how it doesn't affect all of them. It just affects like just this one, you know what I mean? And so then I'd have to go and like copy them again and all that kind of stuff. So there's actually a better way to do this. Okay. I'm going to undo this for all my videos. And what we can do is we can create something called an adjustment layer. Okay. Those of you who've taken a Photoshop class, you may be familiar with the idea of an adjustment layer. But what happens to an adjustment layer is anything, or I should say any effect, applied to the adjustment layer will apply to all layers below it. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go here and I'm going to create an adjustment layer. Actually, well, okay. I'm going to take the puppy footage and let's start from scratch. I'm just going to I'm going to go to Effect, Color Correction, Tint. And let's make this red with a yellow, light yellow. And then what I'm going to do is over here under my toggles and switches, you might notice this thing that kind of looks like I call it the black and white cookie. It's like a circle with a, little slash mark there, kind of half white, half black. What I'm going to do is click on that. And when you do that, that actually makes it into a adjustment layer. Okay. But you'll notice it didn't quite work. So what I'm going to do is let's make an actual adjustment layer. I'm going to go to Layer, New, Adjustment Layer. And I'm going to get rid of this for the dog. Now this is an adjustment layer. You can call it whatever you want. You can rename it if you want to rename it by hitting Return or Enter. But what I'm going to do is let's take this and apply that to the adjustment layer by going under Color Correction, Tint. Let's set that there. And notice now how notice how this one effect is applying it to all of them. Okay. Now, there's a couple of reasons that you might want to do this. One is that this is a very easy way to modify effects for multiple layers. So if I want to go back and change this, I don't have to go and adjust four separate layers. Instead, I just go back to the adjustment layer, make some sort of change, whatever that change is, and it automatically all updates. Another thing is it makes it much easier to do things that you only want to have to animate once. Because remember, we can still animate effects. So I'm going to do a Gaussian blur, and I'm going to set this to 0. And you can animate on an adjustment layer. So I'm going to take blurriness. Let's set that to 0. And I'm going to keyframe that. And then after 1 second, let's set it to, I don't know, 50. And then see how easy it is to animate all of that at once. So instead of me needing to animate this on 4 separate layers or 4 separate videos here, I can animate all of this at once. And so see how easy that is and see how nice that is? So you can see how adjustment layers are helpful. Now, what if I didn't want all of my content to be affected by this adjustment layer? Adjustment layers only affect stuff that is below it. Anything that's above it will not be affected. So let's just say for the sake of argument, I wanted the kitty video to not be affected. I could drag that above the adjustment layer. And now that one will not be affected because it's above the adjustment layer while the others are below it. Okay. Hopefully, it gives you a little more understanding of effects and how we can apply effects, remove effects, modify effects, animate effects, and apply it to multiple layers easily by using an adjustment layer. Okay, try that out. That was 5, 6, and 7, please.